This week on MS Refresh, everything that's, well, theoretically coming to Microsoft 365 this month. Soon you'll be able to create Power Automate connectors for those lazy companies that won't. Windows 365 has gotten general availability, and finally, published pricing. And a bit of a new format for us. We're still live. All that and more. Subscribe to stay in the know. This is the MS Refresh Show. It never gets any better than that. Hi there, and welcome to the Matt and Sean 365 Refresh Show. This is episode 32 for the work week of August 2nd, 2021. Coming to you live from the West Coast of the United States. My name is Sean Bugler.
And from the East Coast, my name is Matt Wade.
Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great, buddy. How you doing?
I am juiced. I am just ready to rock. 2 cups of coffee in the last 30 minutes. I am just all over the place, and it's going to be great for all of our live viewers.
For everybody, right. That's better than late afternoon coffee. Excellent. So what's on your side? Anything good?
Good is such a relative question, Matt. Let's just talk about the philosophy of what is good.
Your definition is malleable. That's fine.
Yeah,
so, over the last couple of years.
Yeah, some up, some down. I'm good. I would say that my partner, her birthday is this Friday, so we're taking some time off. We're gonna go up to beautiful Calistoga. Please, no stalkers.
I'll call ahead on the paparazzi.
Yeah, right. And then her nephew's first birthday, we just dodged a bullet, and he was born 2 days after hers. Didn't steal the entire birthday, but it's in spitting distance.
My cousin's son was born on my birthday, and they gave him my middle name.
It just really wanted to rub it in.
Against him for his entire life, or the remainder of my life, at least.
It's and as always, thanks for everybody who's joining us live. I see at least one of our friends is joining us from Germany. For those of you who are joining us live, throw it in the chat. Where are you joining from? We always love to know. And also, we're increasingly finding our audience is very European this time of day.
Really, you should all be in bed. What are you doing?
What about you? What's going on in your world?
Not a whole bunch. Going on a little vacation starting Wednesday, and
a well-deserved vacation, I might add. You wrote a book.
Yep,
you've been hard at work.
Yes, exactly. I'm going to tell everybody in my life that, so that I have justification to go do that. But other than that, kind of excited a bit on some format changes that we're going to be doing for this show moving forward.
Yeah, break it down for us.
Yeah, so Sean and I have been kind of discussing how the way that we do this show right now is sort of ad hoc, a little bit arbitrary, where we'll go through, that looks good, that looks good, that looks good, and we pull things from the roadmap or from the message center. And we're going to try to do things a little bit more organized moving forward. So starting with the first week of the month, of any given month that we're doing the show, we're going to cover one topic, second week, a different topic. And these are the topics. So the aim here is going to be that on the first week of the month, we're going to cover what's due that month. So as of the first week of that month, by the end of that month, these are the things that should be coming out. Now, of course, we all know that most of these things don't actually come out on time. So we are going to go back the next week and point to the previous month and talk through what was due last month and what actually was delivered last month. Do you know if it's in your tenant? Do you know if it's going to be late? Week 3, we're just going to do kind of a message center roundup and maybe some ad hoc topics here and there. And then the 4th week of the month, we are going to do a throwback for the month that is ending and cover what's new and updated for the past month, so that you know what has been added to the roadmap to keep an eye out for within that month that happened. So this is going to be our aim now for each of the weeks of the month. If there's a month, for example, like September, we have a Labor Day holiday early on, so we won't be doing an episode that week. We'll just cut out the Message Center roundup, and we will apply this schedule to the weeks that are left in that month. So that's sort of what we're looking at, trying to keep things a little more, structured, and always trying to improve this thing. And I think that will be a positive benefit. Yeah,
I want to add something on here. I think, every now and again, I've had the pleasure of meeting some of you in person as we've gone out and about and started to, see more of the world post-pandemic. And sometimes people will say, like, I love that you really stick it to, like, the PM teams. And I want to be clear, that's not our goal. Our goal is not to make enemies in Redmond. Our goal is to highlight the cool stuff they're building and to talk about how it's valuable. Sometimes there's a clash, there's a disconnect because we want to talk about these great things, but deadlines get pushed, communication breaks down. And this is an opportunity for us to try and balance those competing priorities. Like, we want nothing more than to highlight all the cool stuff that's available to you and how you can put it to work. And this gives Microsoft a little bit of breathing room.
Because what we say here really is
hey,
the
I'll
top
tell you
priority
what,
concern.
Matt, you and I both know, the comments and the occasional emails we get, these things do end up getting further into Redmond than I think either of you ever expected.
Oops.
But yeah, we think the structure is going to be a welcome change of pace.
Yep. No, that's what I'm thinking too. So I think that's probably a good place to kick it off into the news. Sound good?
I think so. Let's do it. Oh, wait, hang on. Oh, no, something's happened. Hang on 1 second here. I realized just now that technical difficulty that I had right before we went live may
have extended. Okay.
Let me just turn off presentation mode for a moment here. There it is. All right. And here we go.
This is the news.
We're trying something new this month. Here are all the things you can expect to see delivered in the month of August according to the Microsoft 365 roadmap. August is a big month for a number of deliverables improving meetings, webinars, and live events in Teams. Keep an eye out for the option for transcription for one-on-one calls, channel meetings, and Meet Now meetings. The long talked about video filters, live captions, and transcriptions in more languages, including British, Canadian, and Indian English. End-to-end encryption for Teams one-on-one VoIP calls. Music mode, branded lobbies, breakout room enhancements including pre-meeting, room creation and assignment, and presenter support. The view switcher menu in the top left of the meeting toolbar to switch between gallery, large gallery, and together mode. Additional presenter modes including reporter and side-by-side mode. The ability to restart a live event, and finally, together mode extensibility to allow you to create your own custom meeting scenes. For our friends in the government clouds, some additional items rolling out to you. Live transcription and webinar capabilities in GCC, breakout room timer, room retention, and participant reassignment, as well as sharing device audio from iOS and Android, and the new sharing experience in GCC High and DoD. And for all GCC levels, speaker attribution in live transcripts. While meetings are the biggest Teams benefactor this month, here are a few other features rolling out elsewhere in the app. You'll be able to pin messages and use fluid components in group chats. Let's hope pinned messages in chat are more useful than they are in channels. Shared channels will support tabs for third-party and custom apps. If you have shared channels yet, that is. And now that native notifications are out in the wild and stable, they will be the default. And of course, for our government friends, notifications are the big change. Windows native notifications are coming to GCC High and DoD, plus macOS native notifications for all GCC clouds, though we're thinking that's probably just for the NASA nerds who end up on TV because what government org is using Macs these days? And you'll be able to configure whether message previews are shown in your notifications in GCC High and DoD. Tags are also coming to GCC DoD, and you'll be able to customize your Teams app store, or lack thereof, with org branding in all GCC clouds. Lastly, the education realm is getting group assignments meant to help facilitate groups of students handing in work together. Now, because the word group isn't an explosive term enough in these environments, thanks Microsoft. SharePoint and OneDrive only getting a little love this month. Offline editing of Office files is coming to iOS and SharePoint, and we'll have a tenant setting available to disable the creation of new SharePoint 2013 workflows because reasons. Notably, SharePoint syntax is hitting general availability for the GCC low cloud. Microsoft Search gets a small spotlight, including people-centric search in SharePoint and Office.com, letting you dive into results related to an individual, image search, and the new topic fields displayed in Microsoft 365 profile cards. The sole Microsoft Stream deliverable is the ability to see a transcript from a meeting recording directly in the transcript pane next to the video player, though this presumably requires the new Stream video player for SharePoint and OneDrive, which we haven't seen in the wild yet. Have you? Outlook will soon let you book travel time and transportation in the web app. The wording is kind of vague and could be as simple as a solution to block your calendar before a 2 p.m. doctor's appointment, or it might be as feature-rich as integrating with Uber or public transit somehow. We'll have to see. And tenant admins will soon finally be able to include an online meeting with all Outlook meetings by default. That'll roll out to all government clouds at the same time as commercial. Interesting. The Visio web app for Microsoft 365 is due this month, announced by our own friend Dan Holm, which kicks off the availability of Visio for free across Microsoft 365 and Office 365 licenses in commercial, Germany, and GCC Low. The improved Microsoft Whiteboard is also due at the end of this month, providing more features and templates and an improved UI in the app itself and Teams. This will roll out for commercial and GCC Low customers. And finally, never to be left behind, Yammer is getting nested replies and the ability to deep link to specific messages. You know, when you want to point out improper behavior by your arch nemesis and get them fired, you can do that now.
That was the news.
Oh, we're both muted.
There we go. Got it. Man.
Live is hard.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
You see my screen? God. Anyway, thanks, Sean. That was great.
Thank you.
What did you? What's a couple of things that popped out to you in that one, or separately?
Yeah, you know, I think that there's some interesting stuff. I obviously thought it was really interesting that they're finally retiring the ability to create new SharePoint 2013 workflows. I think that is topical. One thing that didn't make the news, because you know, with the new format, obviously we're kind of constraining ourselves a little bit to make sure that we, you know, stick inside that box. There's something that happened in the news separate from that that I wanted to highlight. For those of you that use the Power Platform, you know that it's not just about the Microsoft services. It's also about, particularly with Power Automate, it's about the services that can plug into it. You know, I often describe it as the glue that can tie together very disparate services. You know, like for example, my organization uses Slack and Asana and Box, all of which have, you know, data that could benefit from kind of the integrations that Power Automate provides. Mm-hmm. The big challenge, of course, is that you're really at the mercy of how good these connectors are. And it's no surprise that Microsoft's connectors for their own services are really good. And the ones that they created for other companies years ago aren't always as good. So the big challenge that we were facing there is that Microsoft was really banking on companies wanting to take control of their own APIs, their own representation in this product, and to kind of take ownership of these APIs away from Microsoft. And that just didn't happen for a lot of companies. And there are some companies that just don't have the engineering resources to make that happen. So on Monday last week, they announced what they're calling the Independent Publisher Program. So the idea behind this is that they can open the door to anybody who's familiar with how to package up an API as a connector. Previously, you could do this if you had a premium license. You could create your own custom connector and upload it, but it was just that. It was a custom connector for just you. What this is you essentially have the ability to create a custom connector for all of Power Automate, everybody who uses Power Automate. It's a huge deal because it means that if you use Slack as an example,
right. Yeah.
Slack's not a company, for good reason, that has any interest in making Microsoft's products better. And vice versa. Microsoft's not going to invest time in making their connector better. Why would they? Yeah. So the independent publisher connector can let somebody like me or somebody more technical than me package up Slack's APIs into a custom connector that they can then submit to Microsoft, and then Microsoft will publish it for everybody that uses Power Automate. It's big. This is huge.
Do you think this is sort of like open sourcing the opportunity for brand connectors?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we already knew to some degree that they were trying to open source connectors. This is just that natural extension that lets everybody participate. So, whether Discord or Spotify or whatever else, if those APIs exist and somebody has the time to set aside to put that together and submit it, they can make the Power Automate experience better for everybody.
Yeah. So I was always surprised that Microsoft just kind of assumed that big companies or other tech companies were going to just jump on the ability to create connectors because, hey, this is Microsoft's answer to if this then that. So like if you're not going to jump on this bandwagon, you're just doing yourself a disservice by not doing so. And I don't know how they expected that to work. Just knowing, one, you gave examples of ones that they literally have a vested interest to not help out, right? To not build something, but also plenty of the other ones have plenty of other things to do and may not be aware. And, that handshake doesn't necessarily, exist by default. I remember I had a blog post at one point that included some screenshots with connectors, Power Automate connectors. And somebody from the MailChimp marketing team reached out to me after their logo had updated and asked me to update the logo in my screenshot. And I'm like, I can't do that because it's a screenshot from a Microsoft product. Like you have to ask Microsoft to update it, or whoever in your team, made this connector. And after a little bit of investigation, she came back and she goes, "Yeah, we didn't build that. That's not ours."
Yeah, Microsoft made most of the out-of-the-box non-Microsoft connectors to start with.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess if you had a list of your top ones to get created, or kick off any developers that happen to be watching to go off and do something fun, what would you ask for?
I'd love to see. I would love to see Asana, a better implementation of Asana. I'd love to see a better implementation of DocuSign. I would love to see.
I think somebody that can help you with that.
Oh, he knows.
Okay.
I'd love to see a better implementation of Box, because the problem with so many of these non-Microsoft services is that they have the basic APIs, but they didn't invest much time at all for good reason. They were trying to go for volume, not for depth.
Yeah. Quantity, not quality.
Yeah, they didn't tap into many of those APIs. I think there's a ton of opportunity. What about you? Are there any that jump to top of mind?
I know when I was doing chatbot stuff and using Power Automate a lot, I was really disappointed that none of the LMS systems out there, Blackboard, Cornerstone, some of the bigger names, had no connector, and you'd have to go off and do your own, Azure function or, HTTP calls, I guess. It would be nice for some of those to exist because LMSs and CMSs don't really ever interact. Content management versus learning management, they're always just so separate, and their experiences are so different. Microsoft Viva be damned, I don't care. Having some sort of integration there, I think, would provide a lot of people at like universities and large school districts some cool features they could play around with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And so for anybody that's interested in learning more, they do have a blog post available. We're going to share it in the show notes shortly, where you can learn more, including how the Microsoft certification team validates this for security, because that's going to be a really big conversation. What the user experience is going to be like. There's a lot of really great stuff. And as a quick note, they are launching with a handful of example ones, including Airtable, HubSpot Marketing, and Jira Search, all of which are hot, really big right now.
Definitely.
So that's what I've got. Matt, what do you think? What's out in your world?
Well, I thought it was probably worth talking about Windows 365 again. So we talked about that after it was announced in Inspire earlier this month. Today, it's gone general availability, GA. If you're not familiar with the acronym, that's what it is. And they came out not only with the ability to purchase it now, but that includes pricing. So I figured we'd talk a little bit about that. Sean, you want to pull that up on your side?
Yeah, so, pricing.
Yeah, so the pricing for Windows, basically everything is broken down by RAM and storage. And you are paying per user per month, either on business or enterprise. So what Sean's showing right now is the business side of things. They do include the processor, the number of CPUs. That number seems to be linearly related to the RAM. So like it's not really important, I don't think. It just comes down to how much RAM do you need and how much storage you need per person. I thought, interestingly, you can't get more than 512 gigs of storage. And Sean, what was your response to me when I pointed that out earlier?
It's interesting how, Microsoft, of course, makes available up to a terabyte per user in this now.
For Microsoft 365, yeah, and OneDrive,
yeah. And so, I mean, what's going to happen when you try to sync all of this to your virtual desktops?
Right. And I said, 512, that seems kind of low. And you just kind of clap back with, yeah, they don't want people to use this as servers. And I'm like,
they don't.
I don't care. I don't care. Like, I'm not going to, at this point, when you purchase hardware, devices, laptops, like you're trying to make sure that you won't have to deal with the syncing issue where you have too much stuff in the cloud to sync to the device, right? Like, granted, a terabyte's a lot of stuff, but like there are people that have to have that kind of space, which would be people using multimedia files and doing other video editing, big things like that. But pricing wise, it's $20 per user per month up to $158 US. I don't know if they have them listed out yet in pricing for other countries, but I thought that was interesting. There was another sort of interesting tidbit that popped out through the FAQs. And actually, Sean, do you have the FAQ up by any chance?
Yeah, let me pull that up here. So it's probably not that easy to read on the screens here. So I'll go ahead and read it out. Somebody flagged this for a separate reason on Twitter, and it was a question related to in the FAQs for Windows 365. The question is, are there any network charges associated with Windows 365? Which, if you watched the episode where Matt and I broke down Windows 365 for the first time, I made a joke that it was really interesting that they were just giving away such high-speed internet,
right?
4 gigabits per second in some instances.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Huge.
I thought that was interesting. I was like, you could have charged for internet speed, 1 gigabit, 2 gigabits, 4, whatever. Mm-hmm. And Matt said, don't give them any ideas. They didn't take my idea. They went for something I didn't even fathom. They went for data charges. So for Windows 365 business licenses, they're actually capping how much outbound data can be used per user per month. So if you go for the baseline, for example, 1 CPU, 2 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigs of storage, you get 12 gigabytes of outbound data per user per month.
Now, define that real quick.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is a good call out. So they frame it as outbound data, which if you don't, think about it, that's all data. But Microsoft is defining outbound data as activities that include saving a file from a cloud PC to an external location. More importantly, to the point here, data transfers outside of Microsoft Cloud Services. So what we're saying here is that data that takes place within the Microsoft universe doesn't appear to count against your outbound data volume limits, which I don't know about you, Matt, but this feels like a flagrant violation of net neutrality.
Which in the US at this point is really only just a principle and a philosophy. There isn't actually a whole lot of enforceable rules when it comes to it. But yeah, when we were kind of chatting about this earlier, it was like you made that reference, and I thought to myself, how does this justify it as that? And the point is that the whole concept of net neutrality is that if you have an ISP, I have Spectrum, for example, one of the worst companies in the world, and if I'm getting throttled for accessing something like Netflix because Netflix doesn't pay Spectrum for the ability to have a fast lane, that's essentially, preventing that is essentially the concept of net neutrality. Shouldn't matter what data I'm sending back and forth, all data should be equal. Well, in this case, all data is not equal. You're going to have a limit on that data. So 12 gigabytes, let's say that you have a shared Google Drive or something, and you're using Google Backup and Sync in this Windows 365 experience, that 12 gigs could easily be eaten up, depending on how much you use that sync or the outside Google Drive, just from syncing. Because it's leaving their servers and going to Google. So I thought that was really interesting. And then if you go up a step from that on that FAQ, which we'll drop that into the show notes as well. For enterprise, because everything we talked about so far was about business, which is the smaller companies. The assumption here is that they're not too concerned about the data usage because it's not that many people. But with enterprise, all network traffic goes through the Azure Virtual Network. and Azure bandwidth pricing will apply for network usage. So if you click on that Azure bandwidth pricing, if you've never taken a look at Azure pricing for any service, it is almost like purposefully convoluted. And this is one of those examples where the pricing for bandwidth is dependent upon, they have intercontinental data transfer between North America and Europe, between regions within Asia, between regions within the Middle East and Africa. And like all of this comes down to, I think it's a lot of these are between like 1 cent per gigabyte and up to like 16 cents per gigabyte. And it makes it incredibly hard to predict what your pricing or your costs are going to be at the end of the month based on anything that happens in that tenant. So this is not just outbound data. This is all data transfers. So,
and that's the important catch there, because I'm already seeing in the comments here, like, well, that makes sense. Why would you charge for data that potentially all lives within one data center? You can see the differentiation in how Microsoft is treating Windows 365 business tier versus enterprise. Enterprise, they're charging data movement, period. But with business, they're actively incentivizing the use of just Microsoft services, which there may be technical reasons for it, but the perception is not great.
Right. Technical reasons are not. So this is all brand new, right? So like this just came out, I think today, right? August 2nd was GA for Windows. So there's going to be a lot more digesting of this and a lot more communication about it, I'm sure. Oh, not so much communication, but community chewing on this stuff. But it's definitely something to keep in mind that like that one, at least based on what I'm reading here, and the FAQ seems very clear. If you get an enterprise 2 gig, 64 gig storage cloud computer at $20 a month, it's not just going to be $20 a month. It's going to be more than that, because the network data is going to be, or the network bandwidth charges are going to apply to that as well. So, and it's not like you're going to go back to your users and say, hey, I'm going to need you to stop using, stop sending all this stuff over to that place and try to keep yourself limited to X number, gigs per month. That'd be great. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a realistic kind of thing to request. So who knows? Maybe organizations will start like kicking back charges based, kind of like how Azure pricing works, where a lot of organizations will just price back to the organization inside of their.
Oh, you'd better believe it. Yeah, decentralized charging.
Yeah, I think that's what this is probably going to turn into. But anyway, so I'm not saying that we've spoken to the Windows 365 team and asked them these questions, but definitely something to at least be aware of as you start thinking about this, because the pricing may not be as clear as it seems.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, do I hope that there's a misperception there and they're going to put out clarity? Absolutely.
Right.
But I think that the bigger issue right now is the perception's not great.
Right. And so for Daryl, kind of tossed the comment here, aren't the data centers basically the same location? And that's true. So for the enterprise, so with that one, I'm assuming it's still going to charge, right? Because that's just Azure bandwidth pricing, period, for enterprise.
And that's my understanding with the enterprise pricing as well, is that for enterprise, they're charging data, period.
Yeah.
Whereas with business, they're allocating a cap.
Yeah. And in this example that Daryl brought up, in this situation, you would not be affected by this because it's going from Microsoft Cloud to Microsoft Cloud. I don't even know if it matters about the data center. They're not saying anything about the data center. They're just saying that the cloud PC has to live within Microsoft's cloud services.
Right. Well, if you did for enterprise anyways, the between regions would probably matter. So that's where data centers would probably be relevant.
That's true. Yeah. That's a good point. And then they do make a short reference in here that, beyond these levels for business. So if you go over your data max per month, just as Microsoft may restrict bandwidth and outbound data volume on a case-by-case basis to protect quality of service for all Windows 365 users and customers. So,
which, if anybody who's read their cell phone contract, at least in the US, you're very familiar with that language. That's them reserving the right to throttle your service.
Yep, exactly. So basically the takeaway here is, take a little while to investigate this before you actually make the jump to Windows 365. Do a couple, example costing expectations based on what you see network traffic wise within your organization, stuff like that. And if you don't have the skill set for that, which, boy, not anybody, but a lot of people that are going to choose the business licenses, I've consulted for a number of small businesses where the CEO or the CFO is the IT admin because they just can't trust anybody else to have access to literally everything in the tenant. This is going to be really hard for them to understand.
Yeah, no kidding. And that's really what it comes down to is, if we're misinterpreting a layman is going to misinterpret this, or they're going to miss it entirely. And those are, it's.
Yeah.
All right. Here's an interesting question that popped up, since it sounds like we've naturally pivoted to Q&A.
Yeah.
If a person has Microsoft 365 on their computer, will they also get Windows 365? Is there a difference, or is that a separate license unto itself? I believe, if I saw correctly, that Windows 365 can be bundled with Microsoft 365. Because I know go ahead.
I'm assuming that that's going to be the case. So, and I'm also kind of wondering if the Windows 365 rollout is the reason why we still have the unclear Office 365, Microsoft 365 license confusion, where all the E's, F's, and E's, F, K, and A's and G's, I think, all those license types in Enterprise are still Office 365 licenses. And the whole concept of Microsoft 365 was always O365, Windows, and security and compliance, essentially. And I'm wondering if those are going to be more bundled up and put a bow on those so it's easier for enterprises to deal with, where you can kind of go a la carte for the business side of things. I'm assuming, though, that it's Windows as baseline, and then you purchase a separate Microsoft Office 365 or Microsoft 365 license for the person on top of that. So, if you're paying $20 per month, per user per month on an enterprise for the one CPU, you would additionally pay for that E3 at an extra additional $20, I think it is, per month for an E3 license. So, I don't think you're going to get, $20 covers both, definitely, especially since the one is already that cheap. But will they bundle that, especially in a high volume scenario? Most likely. But I haven't heard anything when it comes to publicly announcing anything.
Yeah, and given that today is GA day, there's going to be undoubtedly clarity throughout the week in terms of what bundled pricing is going to look like. Because to your point, Microsoft 365 is, up until now, been the you buy it once, you get it all.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Any questions jump out to you?
Let's see. Actually, I'll answer real quick. Alexander had asked about certs. If you haven't seen the episode from last week, actually, Sean and I spent a lot of time talking about certifications, and we have somewhat different viewpoints from most of the people in the community, I think, when it comes to certifications. But go back and watch that episode from last week, and we talked a bunch about what certs we have or do not.
Spoilers. Let's see. While I'm scrolling through questions here. Oh, here we go. I like this one. Can finally review Matt's book. For those of you that don't know, of course, Matt published you can see it right behind his shoulder there. His Microsoft Teams book, The Authoritative Resource on Using Microsoft Teams.
That was valid and up to date until the day that it was published. Of course, it's a cloud service, and everything changed after that. But
some great feedback already on our new structure moving forward.
Oh, that's great! I love it. Oh, that's hilarious. Well done. We're just the messenger. It's not just it's not us. We don't write this stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean we're victims too.
That's amazing. That's great.
Let's see, what else have we got here? Well, there's a lot of good conversation happening here. I love it.
Agreed.
Let's see. No, I think we might have actually accidentally answered all the questions this time around. If there are any questions, feel free to drop them in. Matt, what do you think the value of us pivoting to this structure is going to be?
I was thinking to myself, what would I like to see? Because I'm realizing that when we kind of do our ad hoc pick and choose, like what things sort of make the most sense or stand out to us. So the fact that you and I have a very different, our priorities are different when it comes to the M365 world. So like I'm really big on Teams and then kind of SharePoint. You really love the Power Platform. So like the two of us can cover a lot of that stuff together. But at the same time, having some sort of like structured overview of what is coming, what was supposed to come, and kind of like a status check. It's almost like, a project management meeting where you have to do this once every 4 weeks, and that topic is covered each of those, each time of those 4 weeks, and then in between you have similar ones. So kind of thinking about this, that was the way I would want to see that, which is kind of where the concept of, me tossing this at you and telling you don't have a choice, Sean.
I'm a victim. You hear that?
That's right. Exactly. verbal abuse before these shows and after. It's a real good sandwich of verbal abuse.
And after this
Yes.
that's the stage makeup that I've got on here covers up the
Right,
tears.
I call his partner and I say, hey, can you do me a favor? Just slap him for me. And then we start. She obliges.
me
I
humble.
don't know. Yeah, right. Exactly.
And
we're
I
only,
stay
we're only
around.
friends on camera. Off camera, we just,
Mortal enemies.
right. Exactly. Exactly. Here's a good one. All right. So Terry just asked, got Matt's book. Any other suggested resources for those stuck on DoD teams? Terry, I am so sorry. My book is not meant for the GCC cloud. You probably realize that now. Sean, you have a history in GCC, and I now have one. So you were on the regular GCC. I call it low just because the GCC kind of covers all three of the clouds, and then also the one. So, and then I deal in high and DoD here and there. And oh man, it is really, really annoying to work in.
Yeah, it is.
So I have been reaching out to some folks at Microsoft about, better documentation, better options for updates. Sometimes I think the roadmap is just people will just click GCC, all three levels, thinking that, oh yeah, this is applicable to GCC, so all three of them count. No, that's not ever going to be the case. So I don't have a great suggestion on that because I'm still kind of learning myself. Sean, you've been in GCC a lot longer than me. Did you have any best practices or how did you not rip your hair out scenarios?
I think that it's a lot better than when I got in. 4 years ago versus today, it's a night and day difference in terms of what transparency looks like and communication looks like. Not to say that it's good, but it's better. I would say that one of the best places that you can go to stay up to speed on things is the tech community for the public sector.
Yeah.
I think that they're starting to get a little better grip on actively communicating on a per cloud basis what is there, what is coming, and what is going to take some time.
Yep.
They're not where they need to be yet. And I think that there is definitely still a lot of conversation that needs to be had around how honest they're being with our user base and, how long it takes to get things stamped and approved. We know it's not always Microsoft, but they don't seem to want to say that out loud because there might be delays. Yeah, I think the tech community is probably still one of the best places that you can go, which is simultaneously useful and disappointing. So, sorry.
All right, good.
One more question to close us out here, and
Sure,
this is just an interesting one. The question is, should I buy the Family 365 subscription, or should I buy extra storage for my personal OneDrive? It depends. I'm going to put on my consultant hat. Do you have a family? If you are...
Well, my cat wants an Outlook.com email address. Can I give her one of those too?
My personal answer is buy the family one. Even if it's just two of you, buy the family one. It's cheaper. It's better. Separate experiences. It's better. If it's just you, do you need more storage? Personal OneDrive, scale up your storage. I think you're going to see Microsoft investing more in their premium plans because Google just started charging solo licenses for Google Workspace.
Yeah.
So they're trying to compete with Microsoft in a space that Microsoft, for all intents and purposes, has kind of had cornered the market on solo entrepreneur, single people who wanted custom domains and all that with their premium. But with Google Workspace for one, competitive. So I would say personally, go for the family plan if there's any more than just the one person. But otherwise, just pay for more storage.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good takeaway there. All right, so I think that about does it. Thanks everybody so much for watching. As always, a like and subscribe is much appreciated. Leave a comment below to start or continue that discussion. And Sean, thanks so much for joining me this week. Can't wait to hang out with you again next week. And next week will be the first week that we cover the week 2 topic, which will be the stuff that was supposed to be last time.
Can't wait.
I know, right? It's going to be great. And we'll see how fast we are coming up with that list because I'll be on vacation. I think you're going on a trip too. So should be a nice little catch up on Monday. And everyone else, thanks so much for watching. And we'll see you again next week. And take care.